so you understand the concept of what's actually happening right now in the economy, to put you at ease and to show you that there is so much money on the planet and it's all available and you have access to it. It hasn't disappeared. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to trick you because people who are afraid are easier to control. People who are afraid are easier to control, right? The tax man leaning on you, right? The boss leaning on you to do more work for less pay, right? The economy squeezing you, easier to control. It's like a submission energy. It's an illusion, and you can unplug from that paradigm into expansiveness. So let me give you the analogy of what's actually happening in the economy. So the supposed recession. So there's like a law called the law of rhythm. The law of rhythm. It governs the seasons: winter, summer, spring, autumn, or fall, as we call it in the US, right? And so everything goes through cycles, okay? And so what's happening in the economy, okay, right now is a cycle, okay? And so what's actually happening in terms of the money around the planet, all that's happening is it's changing hands. There is more money being printed every single second. New forms of currency are being created and invented. You've seen like cryptos and NFTs. There is more money right now than there was when I started the training like half an hour ago. They're making more money all the time. New money is always being created. And so when they're talking about the recession, you're like, well, where did it go? Where did all that money go? It's still here, and there's even more than there was before. It's just changing hands. That's it. That's what's happening. It's changing hands. Now, during the recession, it's like a compression energy, this compression energy. And the compression energy creates that resistance, okay? It creates resistance. And in that resistance is an opportunity for growth, okay? Stay with me here. So I'm going to give you an analogy to help illustrate what's actually happening to you energetically, so you can understand how this is happening for you instead of to you, how this is a phenomenal opportunity to make millions, okay? Who's excited? Who's excited? Give me a yes. Good. I'm loving the emojis as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so my little analogy of the lobster. So the lobster, from the moment it's born, as it goes through life, it has to literally break its shell because it's growing a new shell. It physically has to break its shell. And so it has to crack its shell because a new shell underneath is growing. That's the way the lobster grows. And so and it does it something like up to like 55 times in its lifetime, right? It's a lot of times. And so what happens is the little lobster is growing. If it's in the wild, it typically does this under a rock where it's safe, where it's away from predators. So it has to crack its shell, okay? And as it cracks its shell, sometimes like a limb drops off, okay? But crustaceans can regrow limbs, okay? So it's under a rock hiding, it has to crack its shell, and it pulls itself out of its little shell, and then it has its new body, its new shell. But the new shell is soft and squidgy, and that shell needs to harden. So sometimes the lobster will eat the old shell because it's got calcium and phosphorus and nutrients to grow the tough shell. So it stays under the rock until the shell grows stronger. And if it's lost some limbs, it's regrowing limbs. And then now it has a nice hard shell, and off it goes and in the ocean swims some more. And it does this under law of rhythm, okay, up to about 55 times in its lifetime. So as a baby crab, I think it does it like something like 20 times just in its first year of life or something like that. So it's a painful experience, okay? It's an uncomfortable experience. It's a scary experience, but the lobster knows it must crack its shell in order to grow, okay? And so when it's under the rock cracking its shell, it's vulnerable. Okay? It's vulnerable to predators. It can be eaten because once its shell is gone, right, predators can eat the squidgy little lobster, and the lobsters taste delicious, okay? But it must grow. So if the lobster does not crack its shell, it stays in its shell, it will die because it's trying to grow and the shell is too small, okay? And so what happens in the law of rhythm, okay, under economics is like there's a shrinking and expansion. So when we've got a economic boom, right? There's like plenty of money, plenty of opportunities, everything's easy, money's falling from the sky, like you're getting a bit fat on the sofa, you're drinking your wine, life is good, plenty of cash in the bank, right? We get comfy. Why we want to grow? If things are good, you tolerate certain things, tolerate certain things in a relationship, tolerate certain things in health. You're getting, you're getting a little bit podgy, you're getting comfortable. And then the recession comes and there's some pressure and you're feeling uncomfortable, right? You're the lobster whose body wants to grow. It's time to grow, right? That pressure that you're feeling, it's time to grow. You got cushy, you got comfortable, right? And if you haven't been in personal development where you're working on yourself on a regular basis in personal growth, right? Or if you've delayed making certain decisions, avoided facing certain things in your life, like mañana, 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 later, later, later. Yeah, you've avoided. This compression energy from the universe says, time to look at this. There's a phase in your life, in your life cycle. It's time for you to address this area of your life. And it might be your relationship with your soulmate. Something that needs to be addressed that you haven't addressed. Maybe you've stayed in a stagnant relationship because it's comfortable and easy, but you're unhappy. Maybe it's actually time to come out of your shell, be more visible, be more seen, put yourself out there to actually attract that soulmate. Maybe you've been like avoiding, delaying, sabotaging, and now it's time because your soulmate's waiting for you. It's time to work on your inner stuff so that you can attract the right soulmate to you, right? It might be an area of your health where you neglected. It's like, oh, coffee here, croissant here, chocolate bar here. The weight started to be put on, life was good. And now you're feeling the pressure. And the pressure might be some acute symptoms of an illness. Yeah, maybe there's some aches and pains. Maybe the vision's not so good. Maybe there's some alarm bells at the doctor's surgery, things that you've been avoiding, neglecting through poor habits. And now it's time to nip it in the bud. Right now, you are the lobster who's about to grow. Your shell is too small. You've stayed in a cushy situation, and it's time to break the shell. Breaking the shell may mean getting the divorce. It might be walking away from that toxic relationship. It might be a friendship. It might be walking away from a business that doesn't make you happy, or a business model that is sucking you dry, right? The way that you're working. It might be the way that you're selling that you absolutely hate. You dread it. You learn from some coach and you're doing it, but you hate it. You're making some sales, but it's not enjoyable. Maybe you're selling a product or service that actually it pays the bills, but you're not fired up about it. Okay. Something has to die a death. Okay. So when they talk about it's a winter, meaning it's the death of things, the endings. But when there's an ending, there's a new beginning. Okay. So you're focusing on everything that you're losing. You're not seeing everything that you're gaining. Do you see? So we're going to be making the pivot in our focus. We're focusing on the growth that's occurring. When you focus on the growth, you'll be very happy to break your shell and let go of everything that no longer serves you.